Hey guys, another impressions video, and this is definitely more of an impressions video than a review. I still need to do a Chris playthrough of this game, but the game, Resident Evil, the recent remaster that came out on pretty much everything. I played it on PC, um, and the Resident Evil series. Resident Evil 4, one of my favorite games of all time. That game just came out of nowhere for me. It blew me away, like I'm sure it did a lot of other people. A complete reinvention of this series. Um, I enjoyed 5. I enjoyed Resident Evil 5 quite a bit. It was kind of more of the same, and Resident Evil 4 definitely still had some survival horror elements of the old series, of the old games, rather. But Resident Evil 5 was, like, not survival horror whatsoever. That game was just pure action. And then, of course, Resident Evil 6 was pretty bad. Um, but the old Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 2, 3, Nemesis, Code Veronica, Resident Evil 0, the old survival horror Resident Evils, I really struggled to get into. Well, okay, I haven't really played 2 or 3 or Code Veronica or whatever. But this game, the GameCube remake of Resident Evil 1, I've tried to play this game, I want to say 3 or 4 times, and I could never get into it. And the main reason was the tank controls. I just could not wrap my head around the tank controls, and I would get very frustrated with the game. I'd get lost really early on, and I'd put the game down. I would never get like further than an hour or so into it. So they announced this remaster and a new control scheme where you push up, and your character will move up, and just not tank controls. And of course, there's a bunch of arguments on the internet whether playing with this new control scheme completely removes the tension from the game, and ruins the game. Period. And I'm gonna be on the side that I think it's a good option because it allowed me to really get into the game. I finished this game, which is surprising. And not only did I finish it, I actually enjoy this game, and I can completely understand why people love this game and the old Resident Evils in general. But I probably wouldn't have been able to get into this without this new control scheme. And for those that have played this game before and really love it and love the tank controls, that's an option here. I mean, it's all about options. The fact that you can either have tank controls or not, I think that's great. And I've always found it kind of weird to complain about something that's just this option in the game. I don't know. At least to me, it felt like it didn't ruin the experience for me because it made me actually be able to complete the game. But yeah, Resident Evil. Where I want to keep this video kind of short because I mean this is a game that I think everyone's pretty much played at this point. Let's talk about the story, I guess. It's kind of your basic B-movie lab experiment gone wrong type of shit. And it's got that zombie angle, which admittedly I'm not a huge fan of like zombies in media. I just find the concept incredibly tired, especially by now. Of course, back in 1996 when this game came out, it wasn't. Well, actually, it was still kind of tired at that point. But like the main story itself, I think is kind of cheesy, and I honestly don't really like it all that much. And I know this series, like the storyline, has gotten really convoluted now with like the multiple entries. But I did like the sense of mystery this game had, where you'll be finding all these notes and diaries throughout the game. And that stuff I thought was really intriguing. And it gave the game a sense of atmosphere and, like I said, mystery. So I really enjoyed reading all those diaries and things like that. But as soon as cutscenes started, that's when the game kind of falls apart to me because, like, I don't find the characters to be all that interesting in this game. Like, there's really not much to them, at least in this game. And the dialogue in this game, I felt was extremely stilted and unnatural. Like, when people talk to each other in this game, it feels completely, it just feels off and goofy. In a way that other survival horror games, like Silent Hill 2, for instance, it didn't feel that way. Like, it was awkward. Like, some of the characters in Silent Hill 2 are awkward, and the dialogue is awkward, but it's almost on purpose. I don't know, maybe it was on purpose here. Of course, like, the old Resident Evil has, like, terrible voice acting, but the remake, you could tell they were trying to go for a more serious approach, but I don't know, it still felt really stilted and awkward to me and kind of fell apart, like, anytime I was watching a cutscene, or anytime the story was presented in a cutscene. especially towards the end. And the ending itself on Jill's playthrough, I thought was really cheesy and just, I don't know. I think the main story is not that interesting, but the way they present it through the diaries and like kind of background elements to the story, I think are more fascinating than the actual story itself, which is a bit unfortunate. But I really did enjoy reading through those notes and diaries you find scattered throughout the mansion. And the mansion in general is a fantastic setting. I actually really enjoy when games stick to one setting and you're there the entire game. And this game does that beautifully. But I mean, I guess that's it with the story. Visually, it's a great looking game. I mean, the GameCube version when it came out, a lot of people said it was one of the best looking games ever, and it's really held the test of time. Of course, it's an HD remaster, so it's you've got the game looks better than it did on the GameCube. Though honestly, I'd argue not that much. I mean, the GameCube version still looks amazing. I guess the main thing with this game is now you can play at 60 frames per second, at least on the PC version. Um, but yeah, it's like the pre-rendered backgrounds are fantastic. It can be a bit jarring sometimes having like the 3D character models against these really beautiful 2D pre-rendered backgrounds, but overall, I think the game looks absolutely stunning. Like the environment, like the mansion itself is just like the detail is absolutely amazing. So definitely a great looking game. Audio wise, I mean, there's not much music. It's a lot of like sound effects. I mean, the sound design is top notch. And a horror game, I think, should really have fantastic sound design. And this game doesn't disappoint in that regard. Um, the song that plays in the safe rooms, though, I love that song. I've never heard that song before. It's fantastic. Um, but yeah, I mean, not much music, but what's there is really creepy. And the sound design just really adds to the atmosphere of the game, for sure. So yeah, let's jump right into the gameplay, which is the main portion of the game. And like I said before, the tank controls I couldn't get into, but this alternate control scheme I love. It is a bit weird though, but where like the game's still got those fixed camera angles, right? Which that never really bothered me. But it is a bit weird with this new alternate control scheme because anytime the camera angle will change, you got to adjust the controls. So I could see some people being a bit annoyed by that. It didn't bother me too much. This kind of old school survival horror game, I'll admit, it can be frustrating. And even though I like this game, I don't love it. I definitely appreciate it. I can see why people adore this game and want like the series to return to this style of game. But there's aspects to it that I find kind of dated. Like the general gameplay is going around this mansion, finding keys to open locked doors, solving puzzles, and then occasional combat. Although most of the time you're going to want to avoid combat. And actually, a big part of this game is inventory management, which is one of the aspects I did not care for. Jill has 8 inventory slots, so that's why I chose her. I started off with Chris, but I found myself getting frustrated way too quickly with the limited inventory space. You only get 6 slots with Chris, and the way this game works, you're constantly finding key items that you'll need to solve certain puzzles or open certain doors. But on a first playthrough, you're not going to know what item is for what spot. So you'll have a certain item, and you'll get a ways through the mansion to find out that another item, you needed some other item that you put in your item box. There's item boxes you can find, so that I appreciated, but I found just the amount of backtracking to really get tiring at times. Just to find out I had the wrong item all along once I got to a certain puzzle where I needed another item. Or, like, speaking of the puzzles themselves, like finding this obtuse puzzle that it turns out I needed an item that I don't have at the moment. So I got to keep backtracking and look for some item that I'm not even sure the exact item I'm looking for. Like the backtracking, the inventory management, the puzzles, they all combine to create some pretty frustrating moments at times. I gotta say, like, this game was weird for me because I was loving it one moment and then hating it the next. It's like up and down in valleys that way. But as an overall experience, I did enjoy it. The puzzles are a bit hit and miss for me. Some of them are really obtuse, and some of them are just plain annoying. But at other times, they were decent. I think the Silent Hill games, from what I've seen, do puzzles a lot better, at least like the old school Silent Hill games. But I mean, gameplay wise, exploring the mansion is really fun, and like the map system I love, where it shows like in different rooms, like whether you have all the items in a different room or not, or whether one door is open or locked, or whether it's in progress, which means you're going to need an item to open it. Without that map system, this game would have been. I probably would have quit the game, to be honest. That map system is definitely a lifesaver. Um, the combat you generally want to avoid. I mean, it's clunky, but it's purposely clunky, and I don't mind it. There is a lot of tension to the game, whether you want to avoid the zombies. And the inventory management definitely does create some tension to the game. And I'm sure it's intentional, but it's just not something I really enjoy in games. And it definitely bothered me here. Now, whether the game's scary or not, I don't know. I mean, I think the game's got a good atmosphere, and it can be creepy at times. That said, it definitely lacks compared to, say, Silent Hill. I think that series completely tops this series as far as atmosphere goes. I mean, sometimes there were some like jump scares, although again, I don't. I mean, jump scares to me, those are just startling moments, and this game has a few of those. Some of them are really well done too, and caught me by surprise. But overall, I don't know. I don't think the game's really all that scary. I mean, again, some people find different things scary compared to other people, and I generally don't get scared when I'm playing games. And I definitely appreciate more like creepy atmosphere in a horror game. And this game, even though it definitely has a good creepy atmosphere, I've played survival horror games that had better. So I don't know, scary, not so much. Another thing, like the save system in this game, like you have to find ink ribbons, so you don't have unlimited saves. So that adds some tension there. I thought that would really piss me off, but it actually didn't. So that wasn't so bad. You've got, of course, herbs, and you can combine herbs to heal yourself. You've got some boss fights that are really clunky, but I didn't mind too much. Yeah, it's a weird thing where there's a lot of elements to this game that I'm not a fan of, and it was frustrating a lot of the times, but it was enjoyable a lot of the times too, because I really did like exploring this mansion, and some of the puzzles were fun to figure out. So every time you got like a new item and you weren't sure what it did, its purpose was, it was cool to finally figure out what each item is for. And I'll admit I had to use a walkthrough playing this game quite a lot. Like it's just it's an old game. It's like from 1996, really, like the original game. So there's a lot of obtuse shit that I would be very surprised if anyone got through this game their first time without having to resort to a walkthrough at least once. Like some of the shit in this game is just ridiculous. And I know this is a really popular game for replaying, like in terms of speed runs and such. I don't think I could do that. It's one of those games where the puzzles, the first time they're not so bad. Well, a couple of them I hated, but on a second playthrough, I don't know if I could really stand to go through the same puzzles again, especially after completing them once already. But yeah, I don't know what more to say about the game. The loading screens are still there, like in between. Every time you open a door, it shows the door opening, and those little cutscenes were masked. Were meant to mask loading screens in the original remake and the original game. They probably could have gotten rid of them here, but I guess they didn't. Maybe maybe they felt players would have missed that, since it adds to the charm of the game, I guess. So yeah, I mean that about covers it. I think I've talked about everything. I didn't want this video to go on too long. There's probably some stuff I missed, but yeah, I definitely appreciate this game now. And you know what? After playing Resident Evil 4 and 5. I would like Capcom to go to try another game like this. I mean, I'd like them to maybe change some things. I think some things are a bit too dated for me, like the inventory system, for instance. And I think the puzzles, I think this game is too puzzle heavy for my tastes. But yeah, I would like to see another game like this. So yeah, guys, that about covers it. I'm sure I'm missing some things, but I did want to keep this video short. But yeah, I recommend this for people like me that weren't able to get into this game due to the tank controls. Give this remaster a shot. I mean, it's pretty cheap. It's like what I like. It was like $10, I think. I got it on sale, but I think it's like $10 to $15. So it's not too expensive, and I think this alternate control scheme makes the game far more playable, at least for me. And for those that have played this game before, I mean, this doesn't. I mean, this is basically the GameCube version, just in HD. But I mean, the people that love this game love this game. They play it over and over again. So I really do. Unless survival horror is just not your thing. I mean, I'm not super crazy about it, but I think there's a lot to like about this game. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.